Hey y'all, welcome back to Epiphany, the podcast with your girl, bring your little Esther. I've been hearing y'all say sometimes y'all can't hear me in my episodes, so I'm gonna make sure I'm projecting the voice today. I'm feeling extra bubbly, extra joyful, extra grateful, lighthearted, and just excited for today's episode. I'm gonna have to kick it back maybe just a little bit because it is, again, another one of those topics. We are talking about crazy faith, and we are also talking about religion. Um, yeah, I'm just gonna bring y'all in a little more cause we gonna get on into it right here, right there. Okay. So I had to get my laptop together, y'all, because I don't want to miss anything, and I also want to be transparent about my journey. Hopefully it resonates. If it doesn't, go watch somebody else's content. All right. So the first question that I jotted down here was, who introduced you to church, religion, and God? Did you select your religion willingly, or did your family introduce you to their beliefs? So I feel like I was introduced to church at a very young age. I was introduced to Christianity at a very early age. And within the church, my connectivity was kind of praise dancing, since I've always loved, dance of all forms. I danced from fifth grade all the way to my sophomore year in college. And I think that was just my form of expression, or one of my favorite ways to worship. And I've always felt connected to gospel music. Um, Aside from that, I think my family influenced a lot of my beliefs surrounding religion. And I think I detached from it in early adulthood because I just feel like a lot of my 20s has been realization that a lot of the things that we have learned are either untrue or indoctrinated, meaning like y'all just left out half the story altogether. And I just became dependent on my own understanding of certain things and trying to research it and really just trusting intellect and logic over connecting with God directly. And I think the biggest difference is religion is a set of stories, principles that are based on a Bible, right? And a connection with God is more spiritual and divine, and everyone's journey looks differently in that. And so I just became so confused about religion. I just was like, okay, well, I don't understand God either. Because whenever you read about Christianity, it tells you that God, Jesus, and the Holy Trinity is all the same thing. So to me, it felt like I couldn't nurture a relationship with God without including Christianity. So therefore, I'm not welcome in this space, is how I felt. We're going to talk more about that in a second. One of the questions that I also jotted down was, why do all religions say don't study other texts? So it was like, okay, so if you born into Buddhism, your family celebrates Buddhism, or your family is African and they're of an African religion, like, then you telling me that they going to hell because they don't believe in Jesus, or because they wasn't really raised on that? It confused me. It just fog brained me, because I was like, but they didn't grow up doing it. Or what if somebody is a total saint? They're waiting to have sex whenever they're waiting for their marital partner before having sex. They don't drink alcohol. They don't overeat. They don't do anything that they're not supposed to do. They dress a certain way. They carry themselves a certain way, but they don't know anything about Christianity. They don't know who Jesus is, and they were never taught that. You telling me that they're going to hell? So everything that was not taught to me, I don't know, it just jacked me up. Okay, I just had a lot of questions, and a lot of my questions weren't welcome, I felt like, in a church space. And some of the questions that I would ask my parents, they didn't know the answer to directly, because I was really trying to just get to the roots of what is all of this. And I think some of it does come with experience. I'm gonna say, for me, it all has come with experience and knowing and understanding, like, when God speaks, then you really do know that it's God. But I don't understand that when I'm in fourth grade. And why do we have to get up early to go to church? I'm trying to get my sleep on the weekend. I already got to go to school at 6 in the morning and fight with these children over this strawberry milk. You see what I'm saying? So I was a curious kid. They called me Moth when I was a little girl because I had so many questions and I had so many stories to share based off of epiphanies and realizations that I was having at an early age. I need to talk about it and I need you to answer my questions. And if you can't, I'm going to be carrying this confusion with me. So, anywho, one of the things that I have seen within the Black community over the past, I want to say 4.5 to 5 years, a lot of Black people started wearing the ankh instead of a cross. I didn't know if that was like to symbolize rebellion against the Christian community, but I did look up the ankh and kind of develop an understanding of what it was. And then I started wearing my ankh. And from my understanding, it was just simply like the world began with both masculine or a masculine figure and feminine or a feminine figure, and the energies colliding. And I think that's why so many Black people kind of got into crystals and kind of got into yoga and even therapy. And I'm still kind of conflicted on why it became such these big things, but I did watch a film called Hidden Colors where it kind of gives the breakdown of the historic facts of our community and how we kind of got to where we are today. I guess what I pull from it is like there's been a lot of manipulation in the Black community, even in regards to religion. And so that's what's caused a lot of Black people to essentially stray away from getting to know Jesus Christ, or getting to know God for itself, themselves, whatever the energetic force is. I'm sorry if I'm imperfect in my expression. I'm doing the best I can. I'm a new Christian, okay? This is something that I talked about at an event that I was just a part of. I had the honor of being on. It was called Walk with Christ, hosted by a good friend of mine, a great friend of mine, childhood friend of mine, Ronisha Perkins. And this panel consisted of 5 people kind of just sharing their journeys on how they got back to Christ. What caused you to come back here? And are you here to stay? And what can you share with other people to help them navigate their journey? So what brought me back to religion? Man, I'm not gonna lie. The people around me who are spiritually connected is what has brought me back to religion. But what brought me back to God? It took tragedy, it took pain, it took heartbreak, it took a lot of confusion. It took all the things that don't seem good to create the miracle that I am right now, pretty much. So I think a lot of my confusion also stemmed from being caught up in technicalities of religion. Like, for example, I would be judged for going to church on Sunday because they'll be like, you really supposed to go on Saturday. Then I go on Saturday and they'll be like, you sure you went to church? Because we didn't see you there on Sunday. And then another thing would be like, people would say, I would ask other people about their faith, their walk within their journey, and they would say, I don't believe in all them stories that's in the Bible, but I believe in God. And I'll be like, so if it's the same thing, then how you don't believe? Are you saying that you don't believe in God if you don't believe in the stories? And I'm kind of confused about some of the stories. So do that mean that I don't believe in God? Baby. And then blaming the enemy for all hardships and tragedy. Like, sometimes a hardship, a tragedy, or an obstacle is not of the enemy. Sometimes it's a test so you can become better. But it's something that I felt like a lot of church folks would say all the time. Like, they could walk outside of church, get to their car, drive home, and then get out the car, fall, and then break their leg and be like, that was the enemy. Okay, well, you might be right. But my point is, it might have just been, you don't need your leg because you don't need to go somewhere that you ain't supposed to be going. I don't know. But I think the number one thing that really caused me to stray is being church hurt, like just all of the judgment, it just caused me to be like, bro, I can't do nothing right, so I don't even need to be here. I don't need to be here. I'm going to dismiss myself from being here. Don't worry about what I have going on. And I specifically remember being in college, y'all. I was in a relationship. I was in my first relationship in college, and we were navigating through some things, and I just wanted to pray about it. This lady, one of the ushers at church, she had passed around these little note cards, and it said, you know, the pastor is going to go through these, and the pastor is going to pray over whatever it is that you want to pray for. Just write your prayer request on their note card. So I put on there, God bless my college experience. I want to get good grades on my finals, and, you know, help me and my partner navigate through these challenges that we are going through. Boom. She came and picked them up. She was like, Pastor gonna pray over y'all. Y'all go ahead and have a good day. So we walking out the church, and she stops me and she said, that relationship that you put on that prayer card, you don't need to be worried about that. The first thing that came to my head is, that ain't none of your monkey tail business. But the second thing that came to my head was, why did you even read my stuff when you just told us, you just lied in church and said that the pastor was going to be the one to read our prayer cards, not your tail. So that made me feel like, oh, now I can't trust y'all. And then no prayer, if God is saying in the text, like, no prayer is too small, you can bring all things to me, then why are you going to come over here and judge me for what it is that I'm praying for? I can pray for my relationship as a young lady in a relationship. Golly. So just consistently feeling like everything that I pray for is small. God not finna listen because I'm young. Like, consistently feeling discounted as a young person, trying to understand who God is, and you telling me what it is that I don't need to do after you just told me what I should do, and I followed your instruction. You're supposed to be a leader in the church. Lady. Okay. Anywho, another thing I didn't understand, y'all, was what people meant when they say they heard God's voice. And let's kind of take a pivot here because I have the answer now. Glory. I got an answer. So women are blessed with and born with and innately withhold intuition. And it is something that a lot of us aren't really taught to nurture. And it is also something that is not really, it's not, when it's just not nurtured and you're not obedient to your own superpowers, then it causes conflict in your life, right? So your intuition, what I have learned is your intuition is your God within. Like when you hear in church, like God is within you, God is always in your heart, like it's the intuition that you have. And it's maybe not as strong in men as it is in women if you are a male that is watching, but you still have it. You still have that inkling whenever you're in danger or when you need to pivot. But for women especially, we have the intuition and we have to start nurturing and utilizing that gift. That way, when somebody say, just trust your gut, then you actually are in a healthy enough space in order to do just that, trust your gut. And then it kind of matters what you're putting in your gut, because if you, okay, that's a different conversation for another day. We gonna talk about that another time. But if you put in nothing but junk in, then guess what? You're gonna have a junky body and you're also gonna have a junky brain, ultimately clouding your intuition. Let's just leave it there. So yeah, just listening to that first voice that's God. Like if you driving and God say, or your intuition, whichever one you want to use, don't go down that first left street and you like, it's, you hear from somebody, it's a big old pothole over there, you ain't gonna be able to go around it. And you think, I might actually be able to go around it because I know this street very well. You still take your funny looking behind through that street and you get to that pothole and realize the pothole has expanded. Now you done tow up yourself and your car because you was disobedient. Not only did somebody else tell you, but yourself told you before you even made the turn. And so that is an example of when we ignore our inner God or our intuition, and when we don't nurture it, there's always a consequence of some kind that follows it. There's always a consequence. If God told you, or your intuition told you, don't have sex with that person, and you know consistently this is where you make your error or your mistake, here come a STD as a consequence. Here come a child you wasn't planning for, expected as a consequence. Not saying children are consequences, but I'm just saying you wasn't ready and it wasn't with the person that you wanted to have it with. This is how we end up in these situations. So yeah, you get the point. Where I am now, I want to share how God got my attention. After the tragedy, after the pain, after the heartache, God got my attention with community. A lot of spiritually connected people, God started placing them in my life, and I created space for them to enter. I created space to share where I was in my walk. I created space and held space for myself when I was afraid to be like, look, I don't even know if I'm a Christian for real, but this is what I'm going through right now, and this is where I would like to go. I had a good friend of mine who pretty much taught me, like, Holy Trinity, you know, all the divine energy, God, Jesus, we use them interchangeably because in the Bible it's the same thing. And I'm like, oh, okay, I get it. Remember, new Christian. I'm processing, I'm understanding, and then to have it confirmed, I think is what creates a total pivot in life, which we're gonna talk about that too. Woo! So ultimately, I have my good childhood friend when she hosted that panel event, the panel style event that she welcomed me to be a part of. At first, I was like, girl, you sure you want me there? Because I know I grew up in the church, but I'm just now starting to develop a relationship with God. And what are we going to be talking about? Because do I need to study some scriptures before coming to the panel? Because the only one that I think that has really stuck is the Lord is my shepherd and I shall not want for nothing. And I'm still processing that because I want a lot, but I also want more of what God has for me. So in the midst of all of who I am right now, you want me to come and speak? Okay, cool. Let's do it, girl. So these are some takeaways from the events. We did go live on social media, but of course, if you're watching this video, you probably weren't there. So one of the things and I just put them all in quotes because they were from different panelists. And yeah, so one of them was God's grace and forgiveness doesn't run out per se, but you don't want to stray so far away from God that God is like, I don't know who you are. I don't know you. So what that did for me was like, okay, you're going to make mistakes, especially while you're still figuring out this whole thing, you know, but what ways can you be obedient now? Like, you never gonna repent, you know, you never gonna tell God thank you. You never going to talk about how much favor there is over your life despite the heartache, pain, and tragedy. At what point do you pause and acknowledge God's work through many of the processes and transitions that you have been through in your life? That was good. Another quote was, you can't understand God's character without being rooted in the word of God. This one kind of shook me a little bit because I was like, how can I yearn to understand who God is or what God is or God's presence? Like, how can I recognize it if I never open up the text? And a lot of it was centered around, I don't understand no thou shalt art, none of that. I don't get it. And then King James, when I did my research on him, I'm like, this is not a good person. Where is my starting point? And I had a family friend who gave me a Bible when I was a little girl, I think when I was 7 or 8. And it's just broken down so beautifully, and it's simplified in a manner where you can just read through, you know, the text without feeling overwhelmed. And it also includes scenarios for little girls, you know, like it's when it's teaching you going to a verse, you go into a verse that's in the text that I don't know, but regarding, let's say, integrity, the scenario right below it will say, why is it important not to tell a white lie? You get what I'm saying? So it's very much open forum, gives you the full. I needed the elementary version because I'm not going to be able to process well if I'm reading words that I literally have to keep stopping to Google. And then having to reread it with the simplified version in my brain of how I just defined it. It just wasn't working. And so now, as I am engulfing myself in the knowledge and in a new form of education, if you will, I can journal about it. I can talk and have conversations about it, you know, and not feel ashamed because I have full understanding because I'm reading the simplified version. So that was another thing that helped me identify God's voice. Like when you are operating out of your confusion or your own logic, then you'll think that you'll be it's a sign, what I call it's a sign person. Like, is that a sign? Is that a sign? Is that a sign? Like, you won't recognize God's voice. So because of what you desire, everything will be a sign from God that validates what you already thought of. So now I'm like, okay, I can clear some of the fog because I learned that God don't scream. God usually whisper, just like your intuition. Don't do that. Like, it's not as complicated as I thought, okay? So another quote is, the only reason there is an attack is because I'm doing something that I'm supposed to do. So this was another conflict that I had. Because why, when I'm obedient, I was confused on if I'm being obedient to what God told me that I'm supposed to do. I thought I shouldn't have no problems. This should be seamless. I'm doing what it is you told me to do. So, wrong. Like, I think I was just expecting a more easeful life going on this journey, for one, or even when I wasn't on the journey, but I was being obedient to what my intuition was guiding me to do. I was just like, well, why would I have an obstacle this large if I'm doing what it is that you told me to do? Like, where is the reward? You know? So it's because the enemy's going to attack you to try to cock block you. I'm sorry. To try to block you from what it is that you're trying to access, because your blessing is on the other side of it. Okay, stay with me, y'all, please. So this is another, okay, so based off of social media, this is come on now, I'm trying to record a podcast. Another thing that I observed on social media, this is what made me jot this question down. Why do we worry after we pray? This is a question that I've honestly had for so long, because I watch people post about having a crazy faith, and then when I talk to them in person and they're like, girl, I'm stressed out because X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, you just posted on social media that you were having a crazy faith. So what does that mean to you? Is your definition different from mine? Or so what I am learning as I develop and nurture this crazy faith is we're worrying after we're praying because we're not putting down the baggage that we set down to pray about, right? So you're carrying doubt, you're carrying fear, you're carrying, come on now. Girl, and now I can't edit. I can't even edit out me swatting. Okay, so anyway, you have baggage, right? And this, you going to God to pray about this baggage that you have. Like, Lord, it's heavy. The fear, the doubt, the anxiety, the control, the depression, the people pleasing, the procrastination. Like, God, my drive is low. My energy is low. There's an attack on my mind, my spirit, my body. We're going to God with all of these things. And we set the baggage down. We put our hands together to pray. And we feel relieved. But the minute that we take our hands apart. We pick the baggage right back up. We're praying to not have the weight, but after we pray about it, we pick the same weight back up. But if we left that weight or baggage where it was, and we picked up courage, and we picked up joy, and we picked up happiness, and we picked up determination, if we picked up those things and we picked up the text, we will be able to navigate knowing that God's promises are already fulfilled. We are going to be okay. This is just another test, trial season, and it always works out for our better good. Like, we will be walking around just, hey girl, how you doing there? How your mama there? Like, we will be walking around just overwhelmed with joy, because we would just know that we know that we know that God got our back. And that's what I'm trying to access. That's what I'm actively accessing. And that's where I want to be and stay, because that is where I don't have, my brain is not fogged with all of the stuff that that has no business. Just, I don't got to carry it. If you gave it to God after you folded your hands, then leave it in the Lord's hands, because I don't want my body to store any amount of traumas or stressors that are essentially going to also, again, weigh me down. So, and I had that conversation with my friend this week. I'm like, girl, we can't fight when my counselor says this all the time. She says, you cannot fight when you are spiritually weak. I think I said this in another video, but I'm saying it again in case somebody didn't catch it the first time. You cannot fight when you are spiritually weak. And so if you pick up the right tools and put down the ones that you don't need, then you'll notice some things starting to shift. So I am currently surrendering in all forms to all of the plans that I have created. And I'm just like, God, whatever it is that you told me that it is that I need to do, I'm ready to do it. Because every time I try to go my direction, it don't work. Every time I get in a relationship and I try to pick the person, again, another episode for another day. Let the Lord choose, because the story is already written. You just have the ultimate choice to be obedient or to be disobedient. I'm just going to be obedient because I want to see what that life looks like for me. I want all the favor to unfold. I want all my blessings while I'm here. I want all my finances while I'm here. I want all of the joy while I'm here. I want to be giving my flowers while I'm still here. I want to access everything big, grand, and miraculous that God has for me. The only way that I can do that is by doing what God said to do. So that's what I'm finna keep doing. Okay? Another thing that was said was, it's hard to, this is a quote that my friend sent me today. She said, the quote said, it is hard to hear God's voice when you have already decided what you wanted him to say. I could have it also says, so this is a reminder that when you're waiting on God, be ready to receive his guidance, acceptance, and direction. Again, another piece and layer of surrendering, because it's not your plan. And once you wake up and realize that, then I think that is the moment where you kind of release a lot of tension that you're holding, because when you walk in and you feeling like this, it's just, you're all tight and you have attitudes out of nowhere. You're battling with this anger. You don't know why you don't have any idea why you don't want to get out the bed some days. You questioning your purpose. Like, all of those are signs of not being spiritually connected. And you got to get around other people that are that way. First of all, some of that got to rub off on me. And for two, it's really good to have that community to be able to remind you, we are all human. We are all having way more similar experiences to one another's than we really realize. And you need that person to talk to about it. And if you don't, get your counselor. Okay? So how can you incorporate faith-based practices in your daily routine? Prayer lines. There are several prayer prayer line calls that different churches and nonprofit organizations do. So I suggest that you guys look into that. And let me know if you want me to share mine, because it's at 6 a.m. Monday through Friday. I am only off on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. So I try to catch it on Thursdays, but that's my sleep-in day. And then on Fridays, I usually am able to catch it. So it's usually from like 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. And another thing that you can do is start with a single book in the Bible. This is my first time actually sitting down myself and reading full books at a time. Books plural, because I'm going to continue, but I am currently on the book of Proverbs. That is a direction that I received from one of my friends. She said, start with the SOAP method. SOAP means you're pretty much writing out what the verse is saying, what it means to you, a prayer, and then an application for you. And I was doing like two verses every day for probably like a week and a half straight. I fell back off, and then I got back on again. If you fall off, just get back on. If you fall off, just get back on. That's what my mama tell me. So I'm still reading the book of Proverbs right now. This is my first book. I think I am almost finished with it, but haven't gotten all the way there. And it's setting my spirit on fire. Okay, it's really good. And a faith-based counselor or support group. I am doing both right now because I'm still in the season of grief, and I just want to make sure that I'm healing and coping well. I want to also share with you guys what has happened since I have given all of me back to God. I already mentioned a community that is spiritually connected, with my mom being the most divine, honey. What has happened? I've gotten a little more quiet. So I told you I work. I work. As soon as I started getting back into this wave, I'm like, okay, I got to make sure I'm at church every Sunday. Then I started a new job. Now I work on Sundays. So I'm off Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and I'm on or working on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for 12 hours. So getting quiet was a thing that I made a priority, because it's easy to fall off when you have to work on the day where you would usually go and celebrate in God's house. So what I do now is I uninstall social media on the days that I work. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I'm off social media completely. The apps are not on my phone. And what this allows me to do is, when I'm taking a lunch break, when I have extra time before my shift, or when I get to work and I'm not busy that first hour, that is time that I can be utilizing to spend with God, whether I'm praying, listening to a sermon, watching a YouTube video about Christ. I've really just plugged that into all of my free time, especially on my days where I'm working, where I could be on social media and kind of engulfing my brain in all of the madness that's going on in the world. And it keeps me grounded, rooted, and just focused on what God says is best. And it helps me navigate through my work week, because if I'm working 12-hour shifts and throughout that 12 hours, I'm like losing bits and pieces of myself to social media, then I'm not focused on what God said. And then when I'm off, I'm just resting, or I'm catching up with friends, or, it's easy to just kind of get into a routine where you're leaving God out of it. And so this is just one of my ways of connecting and staying connected. Another thing is giving up alcohol. So I'm not gonna say never, but I don't have an alcohol problem. I've never had an alcohol addiction or anything of that nature. But why I got rid of it is because, first of all, I already have crackhead energy as is. I really don't need the bonus. I don't need it to loosen up. I don't need it to warm up, or, have conversations with people, or dance. I don't care what genre of music that you got on, baby. I'm finna hit the dance floor. So I was like, why do I need it? And I think what I was attaching to the alcohol was a certain level of freeness, of being nonchalant and being carefree, I was attaching that to the alcohol. And I also don't make the best decisions whenever I drink. I overspend. I may have sex with somebody I didn't want to have sex with. It just, no, it's just a no. And so when I became aware of what my actions were after the alcohol intake, then I was like, okay, yeah, you can go. And ultimately that led to a journey of celibacy for me. Today is day 159. As you can tell, I'm just praying and trying to stay focused because my ultimate goal is I would love to wait until I am married. I really would just love in all spaces to do what God wants me to do. And so that's what I am aiming towards. If I fall off, then guess what? I'm gonna get back on. And I just want to be on track. I just want to attempt to do it God's way this go around, because everything else ain't work. Period. So and I think sometimes when you get reconnected with God, or when you dive back into religion, it could come with that. You know, it could come with you making really huge changes in your daily routine, your weekly routine, your societal routine, your casual routine, whatever. But I think it's just certain things that you feel convicted of. Like you feel convicted of it when you used to do it frequently, and then you like, no big deal. I mean, I know that's not what I'm supposed to do, but at the end of the day, this is just, this is how we doing. That's what we doing. But it's like, you don't feel the same. Like now I don't feel that. Now I feel sad, or I feel guilty if I do something that I'm not supposed to do. So that's how I came across that. I also want to share something that my mommy said earlier. I think it was last week. And she said, many things that you want right now won't matter later. No, it wasn't earlier last week. It was like maybe over a month ago. But when she said that, we were talking about dating, relationships, marriage. And whenever she told me that many of the things that I want right now won't really matter later, or I maybe want something else, I think what she was kind of referring to is like, not that my desires are not realistic or important, but it's just that like things shift and you evolve. And as you evolve, you want to make space for all of the layers of you that you will become. And that's another reason why you can't trust. We're going to talk about relationships and dating in another episode. It's coming. But you can't trust your own understanding most times when it comes to dating and relationships, because you could get out of a toxic situation, and you're spending time with God and yourself, but in you feeling loneliness, you attract or you entertain the wrong people. Or if basically what I'm trying to say is, when we're choosing partners, a lot of times we're only thinking about the current versions of ourselves. Like if you're thinking about the current version of yourself, and God say, okay, I'm glad that you're enjoying that job right now, but really what I have set for your life is you're an entrepreneur, and God sent you a business person to help you align with your goals and ultimately fulfill your truest and your highest potential and purpose. Like you don't want to not recognize that, because you're only thinking about where you are right now. So that's why you got to give certain things to God, because you don't understand at this time, at this moment, and in this season what I am doing. And so yeah. So girl, I had to have my computer for this one. I had to have my computer. So I think my epiphany for this week is really like the definition of insanity doesn't really resonate fully with me anymore. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. But to me, sometimes doing the same thing over and over again, I mean, call me Delulu, but it is giving like it can be a different result. You know what I'm saying? Like me consistently diving into the word, staying rooted, connecting with my community, it's ultimately bringing insane blessings over my life. So my true definition of insanity is simply thinking that you can do this life without God, because at this little age of 27, it took a lot for me to get where I am today. And it took a lot for me to publish this podcast. It took a lot for me to record and not overthink. It took a lot of layers of self to be embraced, and it took a lot. So I think the true definition of insanity is thinking that you can do it without God, because I tried that. I didn't have peace of mind at all. And so now I'm like, redo, run it back. And yeah, I'm just like, I'm still in my peace back, man. I'm still in my peace back. I want all of you guys to have peace, to have joy. And I want all of y'all to live y'all real life outside of social media, without thinking like, oh, when this happened, I can post this, and thinking like, oh, whenever I get married, then I can post the wedding, I can post the engagement, I can, like, everything is not about a post. And so it's really like, that's why I wore this shirt. It's like, it's not for the culture, it's for the kingdom. Okay. And so, yeah, like, I mean, it's like the culture standards, I get it. But at the same time, if that's not what God wants for you, you shouldn't want it for you either, because when it's not of God, it's not going to last. It's not going to be sustainable, or it's going to hurt you. I don't want none of that for y'all or for myself. So if you needed a reminder to get back spiritually equipped so you can fight these battles that the enemy is going to try to, send your way, I think this was one of the ones. I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of y'all for tuning in. Catch the other episodes if you haven't. And I see y'all when I see y'all. I'm not going to keep saying I'm going to see y'all next week, because I'm going to see y'all when I see y'all. Love y'all. Bye.